And a lot of different types of things going on. We need everything a little. I'm pretty big.
That's loud.
When it works.
Did you hear that? I heard that. That was loud.
Yeah, we need that.
Exactly. That's my whole point on that deal.
Is that loud, Josh?
Huh?
Was it loud?
Huh? Yeah, super loud.
So we've got an empty seat here.
We do.
Can I move over?
Justin, I like when you sing that. I think that's pretty cool. I think you should continue to sing.
Just sing my entire presentation tonight.
I think that'd be interesting to do.
Yeah.
And
You and Jerry.
I want to make sure I got, there's nothing on the consent agenda.
I didn't see anything.
Okay, I didn't either. I just want to make sure it wasn't like a error or something. Is she coming?
Yeah, we're singing our presentation. It's good musical.
I already warmed up. Come
There you go.
on.
Oh.
Catherine.
Also now.
Okay, I'm gonna scoot down.
It's up there. Sorry,
There's another one of somebody needing.
Anybody else need a?
We're gonna call this meeting to order with a roll call vote
Bowden House,
here.
Fox,
Here.
Berglund,
Here.
Stroh,
Here.
Matt.
Here.
Reading of the district vision and mission statement by Dr. Sproul.
The Charles City Community School District mission is to challenge all the students to achieve their full potential through engaging, responsive educational experiences that inspire innovation, critical thinking, and collaboration. The Charles City Community School District vision is to develop learners who are competent, compassionate problem solvers.
He's supposed to do that too.
The operating principles of the board is that we consider information for one is information for all. I prefer no surprises. We like to verify facts. We try to think ahead. We may disagree. Maybe explain our thinking.
Thank you. At this time, are there any additions or amendments to the agenda?
We can scratch. Item number 20, reserves not produced. So this would stay on there that.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Go ahead. I'll make a motion for the agenda.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor say yes.
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 Those opposed say no. Approval of the minutes from August 29th and November and September 12th, sorry.
I'll make a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded to approve August 29th, 2022 and September 12th, 2022 board meetings as presented. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say no. Thank you. Is there anyone here tonight for public comment?
No.
Okay, I have to read that.
I'm Linda Brandt. Oh, okay.
As we begin our agenda tonight, let me explain our process for public comment. On behalf of the board members, I invite any member of the audience to approach the microphone with comments about items of interest or concern. Please begin by stating your name and contact information. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes so we can keep the meeting moving in a timely fashion and allow others an opportunity to speak, as well as allowing the board to complete the agenda in a timely manner. Comments from the public are not limited to items or topics on tonight's agenda, but they are limited to matters within the board's authority. Please understand that we as a board cannot discuss items not already on the agenda. Iowa Sunshine Law prohibits us from having a discussion without the proper notice to all of the school district community that the issue would be discussed at tonight's board meeting. Also, please remember that you are making comments in a public meeting. Should you make comments that the subject of the comments considered to be inflammatory or libelous, you as an individual may be subject to legal action brought by the subject of your comments. And I also would like to just add to this that this is the only time that the public is allowed to speak is during this time of public comment. So thank you for your support of our school district.
I'm Linda Brandt. My local phone would be 228-7635. I was the drama and speech director here from 1980 until a few years ago. So I would be happy to talk to anyone about auditoriums, past or future. The last year, I've served on the auditorium committee as we've looked at various ways of financing this project. And I just wanted you to know that we have a number of pledges in the $75,000 to $100,000 range, as well as many other people who have pledged already or are planning to pledge. We've applied with the financial director for FEMA money and are still waiting to hear about that, whether it will be accepted to the next stage for that. I've been working on the grants that might be available. And I just wanted to know that in a lot of cases, we aren't eligible yet because we either have to have about 50% of the money figured out before we're eligible for some of those grants for matching funds and so on. Or we have to have a way of spending that money within the next year or two after it's granted. Or, now I know I have a third. I don't know. You know, it just went blank.
Is it the bond issue?
No. Just the criteria where we're not eligible yet.
Well, it seems like that's it, that we have to have enough money to.
We have to have money up front.
Mhm.
We have to, or we have to have things bidded so that we can give them exact numbers so that they know exactly what part of the auditorium their money is being used for. And we're of course a ways away from having that kind of exact numbering to provide. So we definitely will be doing a lot more grant writing, but some are we're only eligible for kind of after the project, where we can then get grants toward lights, sounds, and bells and whistles after the fact. So I just wanted to let you know that and what work has been done.
Thank you.
Do you have a?
You can't answer. You can't talk.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Yeah.
Yes, I have this evening's superintendent board report, and it's a lengthy one, but you shouldn't be surprised because we've had quite an exciting week here at Charles City Community Schools with homecoming and a number of other activities. I asked principals Nanette Smith and Marcia DeVore to lead efforts that would create a task force to address the feasibility and logistics of moving second grade students from Washington Elementary to Lincoln Elementary. As this work ensues, additional updates will be provided. KCHA hosted another radio interview with me last Thursday, where I was able to summarize the key outcomes of our recent work session. You may also notice that in the recent edition of our newspaper, we made top of the fold front page with a recap of that meeting as well. As president of the Northeast Iowa Conference Superintendents Group, I was able to host a networking meeting recently and share and receive input on a number of timely topics for superintendents in our area. You may have already been aware of this, but it was exciting to know that our homecoming events went very well last week. Kudos to the school or the high school comic council and the booster club. They hosted some new events this year. I was at the bonfire, and that was a success with more than 100 students in attendance rather. There was also a new all-team dinner on Thursday night. Congratulations to our new Charles C. royalty, Zach Chambers and Harper McEnroy. Last week, I had the opportunity to visit our beautiful Cedar River, where I saw students in Mr. Pittman's expeditions class learn about river surfing, something that I was not aware of until I witnessed it myself. And it was kind of fun because I happened to be interviewed then by the Charles City Press and also the Globe Gazette regarding that project. This story then made the Iowa Associated Press and was later picked up by newspapers, radio stations, and television stations across the state. You can't beat that good positive input. Not only does it highlight the beauty of Charles City, but some creativity on the part of our students and staff who took part in that. I was finally able to attend a short ceremony at Lincoln Elementary, where elementary principal Marcia DeVore recognized outstanding character in a couple of our students, Isaiah Johnson and Bailey Barrett. They were honored for offering helping hands when their speedy response to a medical situation at school involving a foster grandparent. Thanks to these students' quick action, the foster grandparent received the help needed.
So I think the first thing is congratulations on being the president of the superintendent's group. That's got to be a really big honor. Nice job.
Well,
That's
you're very
fantastic.
welcome. And I must clarify, I'm not sure if it's an honor or if they were at the alphabet and C was next.
Either way,
I thought they might let me off the hook since I was brand new this year, but they admitted that their alphabet didn't work in their favor. So I said I could handle
right.
it. Thank you.
And then the other question I have is, do you think that if Mr. Pittman continues this expedition class, that you'll be participating in river surfing?
I have to tell you, I'm a pretty mean water skier. Yeah, but I probably won't partake. I have a birthday coming up in another week, so you know, those days might be behind me.
Okay. We'd all love to see that, just so you know.
That would get a lot of press coverage.
That would probably get some press coverage.
What's the first section? What's the purpose of moving the grade?
Yes, thank you for asking that question. Our two buildings are, one is perhaps a little larger than we'd like to see for an elementary building. The second is a little bit smaller than we'd like to see. We have over 200 students at Lincoln, and we have very close to 400 at Washington. By moving, we will leave one crowded situation to yet create another crowded situation, which might seem simply like we're moving one problem to another. That's where this task force will give us some good information. But here are some unintended benefits of that move. Our lunch service would be condensed into about 300 student body, much better size-wise. Our staff coverage for those buildings would be much more equivalent. It would allow us to attend to the needs of the students in terms of parent contact, teacher evaluations, supervision for students, so that we have more equivalency between those two roles. That's the thinking behind it. Of course, we're open to really the pros and cons that we're confident the task force will ferret out. So we're collecting that information now, and they'll begin meeting soon. It is a collaborative effort with both of those principals. And of course, I will be involved from the side, but I know that their leadership will give us a good outcome and a recommendation.
So is it projected to kind of remain that way number-wise?
Yes. Now, you always do have to consider you're going to have what we call a bubble class. So we may go from an average of about 100 to 120, 130. We might have some that are at 80 or 90. That's always been the case, and that might mean moving teachers in order to accommodate a reasonable class size. when you have a bubble moving through the system, then you have teachers taking turn chasing the larger bubble and having to change grade levels. For some, that's an exciting challenge. For others, it's a misfortune. So hopefully we can handle that when the challenge comes our way by a voluntary transfer.
There's classrooms available at Lincoln, though, correct?
Yes. We don't have enough lockers for everyone, so there may be a cost of some installation on some lockers. But other than that, it seems like it's fairly doable.
That the students at Washington preschool, kindergarten, first grade, then.
Currently, they go up and include second grade as well.
Right. And then they want second, third, and fourth.
Correct. Then we'd have pre-K 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay. Committee reports. Policy.
So I was fortunate enough to get a policy meeting last week, but I missed it because I had another meeting that ran long. And so by the time I was ready to join, they had already completed. So I'm gonna ask Evan if he could fill us in on what they did.
You were trying to pattern it.
Oh, I can do it. I had read all the policies before I got there and I didn't have any questions.
Perfect.
And we talked about a couple of them and I said, you know, it's not that I love every policy, but it's the law, so we have to have them. And it took us, what, about 10 minutes? So, did you have any questions?
I didn't have it either. So.
Okay,
So some things included in there was the open enrollment
Yeah.
policy that had changed according to the law.
Yeah.
Some of our medical policies had to change due to new respiratory illnesses as related to the pandemic, I believe is what those changed.
Okay.
And then we implemented or are trying to implement a curriculum evaluation and implementation board policy.
that kind of goes along with our new curriculum director too.
It does, and
So-
it's required in state law, and it's a fairly new requirement, and that came forward just last spring. The Iowa Association of School Boards provided that model policy, so this is the first year that that's been available to school districts. We'll implement it, and it's timely with Dr. Schilling's joining us here on staff. And it's also required as part of our annual desk audit.
And the first reading will be tonight.
Right, yeah, we.
So maybe just one question. If the public is interested in reading all of the beautiful, wonderful policies that we have, where would they find those things?
Under the board,
Yeah. I know.
On our website. So if you wanted to go ahead and open up our website on the main page, I actually have mine open all the time because they're excellent reference. But if you go under our district, then that is the first letter, they're just dead center in the page. Scroll down to Board of Education. And you will see Board of Education policies. The nice thing that I like here is that they give us a chance to look sort of at the table of contents. Then we can look through the index to specifically locate the number of the policies before we open the link.
That Justin spoke with it for us.
Mhm,
That's awesome. Thank you.
mhm.
Crisis response and life safety presentation by Jerry Mitchell and Director of Operations, Jerry Mitchell, and Director of Communications, Justin DeVore.
I think they said this is a musical. They were gonna sing it with Justin said earlier, so I'm excited.
My singing voice now years ago. So I said, if it's singing, Justin can do it, I'll just be a support.
You do the dancing?
Get to dance.
I gave you a picture of the music.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm shy of.
So, in late September, earlier this summer, we wanted to form a crisis and life safety committee for our every campus and representing all of our campuses, including our innovative campus, about some different things. The purpose of the Crisis Life and Safety Committee Advisory Committee is to coordinate the efforts relative to crisis response and life safety issues, and having ongoing communication and action planning that's aligned to a cohesive system which ensures efficient, effective, responsive, system-wide responses in the event of crises or just to be actively addressing life safety issues. Students and staff are well prepared for crisis and emergency responses. One of the things that happened at this first meeting was we redistributed red binders. You've seen this red binder in closed session. So we redistributed those per campus. And so every campus has one now, number one. And then also number two, and I was showing this off earlier today. Middle school team assembled a middle school emergency guide. And then as they were showing it to other campuses and to other people, it's like, no, let's just do this district wide. And so we ended up doing this district wide. So this is hanging or will be hanging soon in every classroom. We printed, I think, 80 of these, and it was popular enough that we ordered another 115 to be printed. And so this was now, I just pulled this out of the classroom right now, just as an example for you of this is hanging in every classroom district wide. So if you say, my goodness, there's a fire alarm, what do you do? And here's the procedures. If you're Nancy and you're a substitute in our school and you don't know what to do, you flip to, there's a fire alarm. Here's what you do. There's an evacuation. Here's what you do. Here is a bus accident. This is what you do. And so this gives step-by-step instructions for anyone involved with that or anyone needing to know what needs to happen with that. So we have a team of campus leaders and staff that meet on a regular monthly basis right now.
Can you pass that down to the table so we can?
I can, it needs to get back in the classroom, but yeah, you can certainly take a look at this.
Don't get on stage.
Can I ask you a couple questions real quick?
Can we wait till the end of the presentation?
Sure, absolutely, yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we're doing, and one of the things that we did, and this was scheduled way before anything else here, but we actually performed a walkthrough with Charleston City Police Department. They came through and they went through each of our 6 campuses. I'm throwing central services into that, and they gave notes on nearly every campus on, we would make these changes, we really like this, we don't like this. They talked to staff, they talked to front of house and said, hey, what do you do in this situation? And then they said, okay, we do this, or we do that, or golly gee whiz, we really don't know. And so we took notes and we said, okay, here's what we're gonna do.
Door readers at each campus. We've had that in place now for probably about 8 years. So what that is everybody's assigned a reader, a badge. You go to any of the doors that have them on. Each school has a different number on the exterior, and you swipe in to get in if the door is not unlocked at the time. So like tonight, it's unlocked. Any other time, I think each of you have a badge you could swipe in. What that does, that tracks everyone that goes in and out of the building. I can look, or about a few other people can look at any time, do a history report, see who went in and out of the buildings and all that. So we track that. So what that does with door readers on each door, that's where we want everyone to enter and exit our buildings. So things are monitored and we know who's in our facilities at all times.
And there are several doors at each campus. It's not just one door, several doors. Dr. Lundquist and I was talking with her about the state-of-the-art middle school and some of the features that we have there. And one of the things that I was talking to her about, and I said, let's go test it out. And so we went over to the middle school and we made the calls that we needed to call first, and we let our staff know that, hey, at 3:45 today, we're going to do a lockdown test. And so there is a special fob. Jerry was talking about the fobs. There's a special fob at various locations throughout the buildings and campuses, that if you touch this fob to any card reader, then it's going to lockdown. It's gonna lock down the middle school. And
If you
so
touch it to what?
if you touch a fob, a special fob,
Oh, okay.
okay, to a card reader, which is about yay big, and if you look right outside this door, there's a card reader.
Okay.
And there are card readers throughout, several places. If you touch one of these special, we call it a red fob, but it's truly not red. Red fob to any card reader, it's going to initiate a lockdown. And so we did a test and then we walked around. Now, here's the nice thing. Her fob works. My fob is a worthless piece of plastic until Jerry clears it out.
Not only does it lock down the middle school, but it locks down this whole campus. So this whole campus, so if someone swipes one of those, it locks down the campus. And there are a few people that have a badge that can override that, but we're not gonna say who all has it, because then if we have someone come in, they're gonna go to that person, give me it, so they can go into the areas that were locked down. So there are just a very few handful of people that have that. And it stays locked down until we reset the program. So all of that, everything with the door readers, the fobs and all that are on a really nice program that you can monitor everything. You can set times for unlocks, times for locking the facilities and everything. So that all incorporates with the door readers at each campus. And middle school by far has the most, because of course it's the newest building, but all the rest of them have quite a few in also. The last thing on this slide is what we're doing is we always check the doors on a regular basis on second shift staff. So our second shift staff, before they leave at night, they go around and check all exterior doors to make sure they're closed, latched, and locked. That prevents me from maybe getting a phone call at 2 a.m. by police coming through, because they check our buildings on a regular basis and saying, hey, you've got door number 32 unlocked, and I have to show up and do walkthrough. So we've done this for quite a few years, but we're stepping that up and just making sure that we're checking every door, not just go by and visually inspect them, push on them, because as the doors get older and they get wore, they'll close, but sometimes maybe they won't latch. We also have a numerous number of cameras at every facility. We've tried to be proactive and try to add more and more each year. We're up to an amazing amount of numbers now. I'm not going to say exactly how many, but we've got exterior cameras, numerous exterior cameras and numerous interior cameras. It coincides with our fob readers. So when someone swipes, not only does it document the name, but it also gives us a photo of who's swiping in and out. So if someone's using someone else's badge, we're going to know if they're using somebody else's badge. So we're continually upgrading that system. In fact, part of this year's funding, it was this last year's funding that was approved, we're upgrading all our DVRs so we can even have more capacity and add more cameras in the future.
Does that work with your buses too? I mean, like you said,
Our buses have cameras, our buses, yeah, I'll talk about bus cameras here a little bit. We have 5 interior cameras on every bus now, and we have 2 exterior cameras on every bus for stop sign violations. So there's not a spot inside that bus really now that we can't see if something happens. And we've watched them quite a bit this year. They work so nice. So yeah, so the buses, not only the buses, but the cars that go to other facilities that we transport students to, those cars also have cameras in them now too.
So one of the things that you've heard about is doors being propped open. And so one of the things that we did is I've done this walkthrough, Jerry's done this walkthrough, and we've walked around the outside of all doors, all campuses, and we pulled on the doors. And then what we also looked for at that time was any extraneous, there was a rock outside of one door. The door was closed, but there was a rock out there. There was a brick outside of another one. There were several bricks outside some other ones. And so we removed those door props. I went around, took pictures, sent them to Jerry. He had a crew person, maintenance person go around and get those and pick them up, and we'll say, let's get them out of here. One of the things that the police department will tell you, one of the things that I will tell you, one of the things that Jerry will tell you, one of the things that you will repeatedly hear ad nauseum is if you can control access to the campus through the correct doors, you will be much, much safer. That's from Jerry, that's from me, that's from PD, that's from other people that we've talked to. It's in the trainings that we've had. That is key. You can't be walking in and out of fire exit doors. You can't be walking in and out of doors that aren't monitored and have no no one watching them during the day.
To go along on the life safety side, we have regular life safety inspections done by a third party, which is required by the state. We have our sprinkler systems at the middle school tested annually for inspection, a quarterly inspection that needs to be done. We have all the fire alarms at every facility done by a third party inspection that is done on a biannual basis. We have all the fire extinguishers done in everywhere. So we not only have them all in all the buildings and all 6 complexes, we also have to have them in every vehicle that students ride in. They're inspected on an annual basis. And then we have an ANSOL system at Lincoln School right now is the only kitchen that has an ANSOL system. And that system is, if you have like a grease fire or something, it automatically disperses over. So everything you cook has to be under that ANSOL system, and that's inspected twice a year. So we do our life safety inspections with a third party that's required and do them on a regular basis. And then we already talked about transportation cameras a little bit in Comet Cruise. We have Comet Cruise that does some in-town pickups. We have an aide also on those buses for extra safety and security for the driver, just to monitor the kids so that the driver can just drive the bus. And I already mentioned that we have 5 interior cameras and 2 exterior cameras on every bus now. One thing we're looking at doing in the future here, and I had an architect come in and do a walkthrough with me. There's 3 schools that we don't really have an interior secure entrance. Yes, we buzz them in right now. So part of our ISONAS lock system, our fob system, come to the front door at Washington or at Lincoln or at the high school. They come to the front door, the staff, they hit a buzzer. They have a little screen that shows who it is. And then the staff on the inside that's greeting them can push a button. Once they push the button, currently at those 3 schools, they can walk in and get in the hallway and walk wherever they want to before a staff greets them. So we're looking at creating a vestibule at those 3 buildings, similar to what we have at the middle school, where you come in that vestibule, they're right there. You buzz them in, they can come right into where the staff is. And then from there, they find out what they need, and then they can go into the facility if they have an appointment. So we're looking at doing that at all 3 of those facilities. A couple of them will be very reasonable to do. The 3rd one might be a little more expensive, but we're applying for state grants to help pay for that. So we're hoping to hear something in the future on that.
If you want to see an example of that, go to the middle school and see what that is, and try to walk in there sometime during the school day, because that's a really good example of that. We're engaging the state of Iowa in a vulnerability assessment. So the state of Iowa has, just like the police department said, hey, we'd be happy to come in and take a look at everything. State of Iowa will do the same thing. We've actually got a couple other people that we're going to be engaging with that too. But the nice thing about the state of Iowa is they're actually going to say, okay, take this vulnerability assessment and then start, and we're going to offer you some funds to be able to fix some of those things that you have identified, that we've identified, the state of Iowa has identified in there. And so we have some specific things that we're hoping to use that funding for. And then we also are, we're going to see what they have to say about some other things as well.
And that vulnerability assessment is coming up, I think it's in January. So we'll know more after that. Couple different days we're going to do it at each of the facilities. We're going to conduct tabletop simulation drills. I don't know if many of you have ever sat in a doctor. You might have sat in on some healthcare. When I was in healthcare, we did tabletops, real drills, and all that all the time. It could be just a one school that we're going to do a tabletop in. It could be the whole school district where we'll have it. We might do it with the county and say we had a bus accident, and then how are we all going to participate in that? So as we do tabletops, and the thing you always find about drills, everyone wants to know, what exactly do I do? Well, every drill is different. I can't tell them what you do. That's why you do tabletop drills. That's why you do actual drills and things like that. So that way you're at least more prepared if something happens in the future. So we're going to start conducting those on a regular basis.
So the state of Iowa also said, hey, we would like to provide free radios at each of your campuses. And we applied for 6 radios. We got funded for 4 radios. And they said, we would like to provide this so that in the event of an emergency, you can grab a radio and you have instant communication without going through phones, without going through anything else to the law enforcement. So we've already worked with the police department and they know exactly what frequency that they want to program in to those radios. And they said, we are happy to do that, but you will go through extensive training. Anyone who touches that radio is going to know what to do and how to communicate. And it better not be picked up when someone's just scared. And so they said, this is absolutely imperative because you are talking to every single officer in the county when you hop on this in the area. Now, we're also working with the sheriff's department as well to say, what would you like? What frequency would you like? Can we be on your frequencies? The police department has already said that, and we're working with the sheriff's department to figure out what they would like.
You know, the key takeaways here, staff enter and exit through fobbed entrances, so you can control who's in your facilities. And like Justin mentioned a little while ago, controlling access is the main mission. If we can control access, you're gonna be able to control a lot of the things that happen in your facilities. Now, questions now.
Probably everybody else knows, I don't know what a tabletop drill is.
Okay, so tabletop drill is, so someone will come up with a scenario, say like, we just had, someone come up to the front door, they look like they might be carrying a gun, and you put a little scenario out there. And then everyone sits at the table and you just start talking about it. All right, what would you do at the front desk if that would happen? All right, and they get to talk about it. And then there's an interaction between everyone that's at the table. And then from there, we might throw something else in there. Okay, what would the superintendent do if she was called and had this happen? And all that is sort of talk about different scenarios.
Some kind of a deal that actually happened on.
Yeah, no,
Well,
that's
you-
all it is. You're all sitting at a table, and that's why they call it, you're all sitting around the
I
table
get it.
and you talk about a different scenarios.
And when I've engaged in them, and it's probably similar for the rest of you, we actually had different things we could move around. We would look at the map and they'd say, oh, but you can't because the chemicals spill on the highway now closed off this artery. Well, then you have to turn and rearrange around it. So it's really a simulation that is meaningful.
There's about 3 different things you could do for drills. You can do that. You can actually have something that happened. You know, when I was in Mercy in New Hampton, we actually had a bus that they had tipped over and they had moulage and all the people that were riding on the bus, and they'd actually bring them to the hospital and you'd have to actually run them through it. You know, so yeah, there's many different forms that you could do. So,
They're helpful. I mean, I've done them with emergency management and they're incredibly helpful.
Looks like a good plan.
So for each building, is there a point person that is responsible for that building?
It's the campus principal.
Okay, so is there a second person? So if the campus principal is offsite at a meeting, sick.
Sure. Then it's whoever they designate. So,
So it's not an automatic, they have to say, how do they communicate that to everybody before they go?
well, what I would say is at pretty much every campus, they've already designated that person.
Okay, so everybody knows who that is.
People who need to know.
Well, the teachers might want to know, right? Because they were.
Sure. You know, and one of the things that there is we actually go by emergency management and we go by their plan. So, you know, one of the things is like, okay, Nanette's in charge at Washington. And then, you know, then there's a safety officer and then there's you flip in that red book and here's the plan. And here's who's in charge and here's who does what. Evan has a role. Dr. Lundquist has a role. I have a role. Jerry has a role. Everyone has a very specific role. And you go by that plan and everyone does not feed into the incident commander. 3 people feed into the incident commander. Evan does not feed into the incident commander at that point. He feeds into somebody else who then feeds into the incident commander.
But my question is, so if I'm a teacher in Washington, in your example, and I don't know that plan, I may just go directly to the person I think is the point, try to tell them things. And what you're saying is there's layers in place. My question is, do they understand those layers to make sure that they can follow that plan?
And that's what this committee's for. We're going to continue to work on that. So I wouldn't say it's probably that far down yet.
Okay,
Josh.
that's
But-
great. So, but the plan is to get them there.
Correct,
Okay, yeah.
correct. We've had one meeting so far. I thought it was a great meeting. I can't thank Ann enough for putting this together. I've been wanting something like this. She's done a great job in saying, we're gonna do it. You two are gonna run it. Let's go. And off we go. So yeah, that's things that we need to move forward and continue to get that in place. So everybody knows in the district, if they need to know, they're gonna know who's there. If Brian's gone from the high school or, right?
So those of us who have kids in the district know today was a PD day because they were all home. And so I know that each building has their own PD, but this might be something that's like a campus-wide or a district-wide PD day to have some part of this as well, just so people understand what's going on and they can be prepared and know.
Yeah.
And just so they're prepared and not.
And actually today, part of the PD today, they actually took our first meeting minutes and we're supposed to go to their campuses and do it. So like, Sam and I had a potluck down at the Armory with our staff and we reviewed the minutes from our meeting.
That's
And
awesome.
so today was the first day that we actually rolled it out to the staff.
So that's why I was really happy to, when I walked into a classroom to see that that was on the wall.
Yeah, that's great.
So
Thanks, guys. This is really good. This is great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, public hearing on the return to learn plan.
So I have a question about this. Do we have to do these every year now, or is this like some state law that requires this, or is it because we started this like 2 years ago, or?
We have to have a return to learn plan until our ESSER money is expended.
Okay,
As soon as our ESSER money is all expended out, we want to have a return to learn plan.
so am I right in understanding that our ESSER money has to be expended by June of 23?
It's now September of 24.
Oh, look at that. Well, they're moving that. That's great. Okay, thank you so much.
And they can also change the rules for the return to plan whenever they like.
Right, well, that's great too.
And you probably noticed it looked very similar to previous plans with only minor changes, and kudos to Marcia for taking leadership on this, as she has in the last several years. And so as we've transitioned now to a district operation, that should take some of that away from her watch. But her good work is evident in this plan.
Yeah, I mean, it almost looked like we just changed the dates,
That's pretty much all we did.
so that's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcia.
So I didn't receive any written comments. So is there any public comments on the return to learn plan?
I guess the only question I have is, since we have a lot of the people that created it, do we have to keep them on there since they're no longer part of the district? So page 2, it says, they're developed by the Ranger Task Force members. I mean, is it important that we keep them on there, or can we just talk about the current team? That's my only question.
That's a very good
believe
one.
this was track changes a little bit, right?
Yeah, this one tracks changes.
Yeah, so you might be seeing track changes on there.
I believe we removed all their names, but we might have overlooked one.
Well, that's okay. That's
For
fine.
example, Mike Fisher is no longer. with us.
Right, so if you look on,
Marcia knows.
yeah, if you look on the document, what we wanted to do was show you the changes that had happened. So the things that were crossed out.
Yeah.
Those will actually come out of the document
Okay.
before we publish it on the website. And certainly on that list of teams, we'll include the team that reviewed and revised. So we'll enter it as our primary team.
Yeah, so you just talk on page 2, just talk
Yep.
about like the task force members, and they're not X'd out, so, and that's
Yeah, we
fine.
say develop the original
Yeah.
plan and then we talk about the review committee. So
And that's fine. I just was curious, so. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve the 22-23.
we gotta go through the public hearing and then we'll get to the.
Oh,
I know.
I missed that,
So
sorry.
second go around, any public comment for the hearing? And third time's a charm, any public comment for the hearing?
Now,
So the public hearing is now over.
Concluded at 6:58 PM.
Now we're on next.
okay. I would like to make a motion to approve the 2022-23 return to learn plan as presented.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the 2022-23 return to learn plan as presented. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Passes 5-0.
I'm also aye.
Okay. Early retirement policy, this is the second reading for that. Second. Have to read it.
Did everyone get a chance to read it? Or during your questions? Just a little minor change. It said classified, just last time I put classified and support to include both groups. And then also we had a question about, if they were less than full-time, what they got, and it'd be prorated based on status was in there as well. So if you're less than a full-time employee, and if you apply for the early retirement, you've got all the criteria to be prorated based off.
And it's your district salary, not any scheduled stipend money,
FG or B or.
whatever other letters there are there, because there's a lot, right? It's just your salary.
This year it's lump sum, so.
But it, yeah,
But it's based on, yeah.
it's lump sum,
it's a
so it
lump
doesn't,
sum,
yeah,
so,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. All that one, okay. I'd make a motion to approve the second reading of the early retirement policy as presented and to include a one-time lump sum of $25,000 for certified employees and $7,500 for classified support employees.
I'll second.
It's moved and seconded to approve the second reading of the early retirement policy as presented and to include a one-time lump sum of $25,000 for certified employees and $7,500 for classified or support employees. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Approved 5-0. Okay. High school facility, next steps. We did meet, with district stakeholders and the community in a work session on September 20th. I thought that was a really good meeting. I hope you did too. So this is just to comment on whether we want to have Dr. Lundquist and Evan, the director of finance, move forward on things.
So are there any questions based on the update? Evan and I are happy to entertain any questions you might have.
So I have a question. So last spring, we did a bunch of meetings with different groups within the district. There was a person or persons that were kind of represented differently. We had some rural people, business people, city people with kids, without kids. And we had them all kind of give us comments and review the work that had been done so far on the redesign and the re-idea of the high school. Have we looked at those, or have you had the chance to look at those? Because I know they were done prior to you, and they had, Pat and I went to a couple, they probably did 5 or 6, maybe, I don't know, Pat, how many think they did? So I guess the question is, is it gonna be that same group? We're gonna look at different people.
It would be my recommendation that we use those local individuals because they have a level of expertise now. You can see, and while I wasn't involved in those meetings, I did read their notes and some of their recommendations. And all of that would be part of the consideration, and having their voices at the table to help direct us. And some may not be interested in further work, although it's my sense that many of them are eager to continue as part of that. So should you make this recommendation, my first step would be to work with Evan, who's familiar with those individuals, and with Pat to assemble a task force and get the conversations rolling as soon as possible. It is a very, very tight timeline for a March vote. It may be, as we get into the work with the architects and the task force, we may have to be more realistic, and it may look like a September vote. We want to make sure that whatever it is we do, that we're well prepared and that our task force voices have been at the table. Because at this stage of the game, with a hybrid version, if you will, of A and B, it will be critical that we have full understanding of what is involved. Because once we take that to the voters, we cannot change it. And that's a critical point. We wouldn't want to rush a decision that may cost $26 million. So I want to prepare you for that based upon the task force input, the architects, and your voices, those of you that want to be represented on that as well.
How do we determine the makeup of the task force?
I would ask for those individuals from those, I would put out the invitation
From the previous group.
from the previous group. And so those that would be willing to raise their hand and be a part of it. If we have more people than we can manage in the single task force committee, I would reduce that, and I used Pat's expertise to do that. And any of the rest of you that might have input on the board as well. We don't want the group to be too large that it's unwieldy, but we do want to have the best representative from the different stakeholder groups to help us guide us through those decisions.
When does your board member?
Yeah, so there's a whole timeline, and I actually just got that back from her attorneys today. I'd be happy to forward that on to you guys. I haven't read it myself. Of how this process goes, but our first step would be re-meeting with architects to get a potential plan drawn, and then we bring that plan back to you guys, have a work session, devour it, make corrections, suggestions, bring it back to the architects until we're all comfortable bringing the vote through sessions. So I'm tentatively approval tonight. I want to set up a meeting with architects in October to start this process, but I'm just waiting on your guys' approval.
And the board did approve and envision the architect firm to do this work, and they have done thousands and thousands of dollars worth. Now, we could scrap that and get a different architecture firm, but I would not recommend that. I don't think that would be wise, because the firm that you have already hired that we're currently working with has already done much of the necessary work, improvement plans, and they were part of the task force and part of the review of the data and the information and the logistics on the front building.
And anything that would be reconfigured, we would have high school input on that too, right?
Absolutely. And I would go so far as to say perhaps being unfamiliar with the names on all the previous task forces, I would want to make sure, yes, that that's included, but I'm also concerned because an auditorium wasn't part of the original task force conversations, that we may include some new voices at the table. And you may be aware, and we had public comments, there's a group of individuals that have been meeting for about 1 year who have an acute understanding of the needs in the auditorium and have expertise in that area. So I would reach out to representatives from that group as well, because that was not a group that would have been part of those initial conversations. And that's a critical piece of my recommendation to the board.
You can send that timeline to us then.
Yeah, we're going to do that right now. So what they actually sent us is a draft memo of what it looks like for you guys to review.
So a board member is not part of the task force.
I think you were.
No, actually, we weren't a part of the task force.
We participated kind of ad hoc, like.
Oh, yeah,
We
we
just
kind
went
of
to the
came in
meeting
at the
and did
end.
talk and
Oh,
We were
just listened
invited
to
at
the
the end,
feedback from
Okay.
people.
but they didn't want, they wanted it to be a grassroots effort that came from the community, not influenced by board members
Or leadership.
or leadership. Yeah, there were no principals or anything there either.
And there's a lot of wisdom in that approach. And in the districts where I've worked in the past, and we have been successful with bond issues, I will tell you the common denominator was that it was the voices of stakeholders, not superintendent, not leadership, and not board members that were making the case front and center to their stakeholder groups, whether it be Rotary, Lions Club, Lunch and Learns, the chamber, any organization that might be an opportunity to clarify and provide a full picture of what this might involve, everything from the individual tax burden for property owners to details on what the plan might look like. All of those conversations are more successful when people like the board and leadership step away. What is also helpful with our resources to be able to provide various information and talking points, not only from the architects, from our archives, from our financial understanding, from our experts in the field, everything, as I said, from the property tax burden, you name it. Providing that information, much like we provided it to the task force members. They got their numbers, they got their information to make their decisions from experts, not only in the field, but in the district. But you are correct. You want your stakeholders front and center, and always having people like representative board members and administration in the background prepared to respond to questions if the task force could not.
I'll make a motion to approve the district administration to assemble a task force to further explore the feasibility of a bond issue, which would go forward, would go towards upgrading the high school facilities to be a more safe, secure, up-to-date learning space, while also including the addition of an auditorium.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the district administration to assemble a task force to further explore the feasibility of a bond issue, which would go towards updating the high school facilities to be a more safe, secure, up-to-date learning space, while also including the addition of an auditorium. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Passes 5-0. Okay. Here you go, you guys. Okay, next one is the board policy review. Kind of talked about this a little bit earlier. The recommendation of the policy committee, which was just Evan and I, was to approve these policies.
Pat, do we need to read through this or are we just approving this?
It's just the first reading.
First
There'll be a second
reading.
reading at the next meeting, so
Yeah.
I need more time to read, yeah, but. Okay.
A second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the first reading of the policies as presented. Is any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. First reading passes 5-0. Next one is the naming of school depository for 2022-2023 school year.
So this is any different than last year.
I just took the CPI this year and increased rates a little bit, since we did get some new money, but it's the same bank, same institution, it's just a little bit of increase in the amount of money we might have there.
I go ahead and make a motion to approve the depository banks and amounts as listed in the 2022-23.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the list of depository banks and amounts as listed for the 2022-23 school year. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
Yes.
5-0. The next is the naming of the school level 1 and level 2 investigators.
So I have a question. I guess I thought in the past that we had an internal person who did that work.
So we did, but sometimes we can run into when you have internal people with bias. So we thought it'd be really good to have an option to have an external third party to provide a non-biased investigation into a situation.
So then, okay, so two questions. One, reading these people's blurb about them, each one has a specific discipline that they're focused on. So based on the incident, I guess is how I phrase it, we would contact AA and then they would provide that resource for that particular discipline, right? And then would we pay for those services? Correct. So we would,
Maybe we'd get an engagement letter that we'd have to take to the board to approve the contract.
And I hear, within your question, I'm reading between the lines, Josh, because I have been advised, and times have changed in the last 35 years I've been in, education. And sometimes these things get complicated very quickly. And it was the advice actually of the chief administrator at the AEA that we approved this list of individuals. Some you will find to be very affordable. One here I'm looking at right now charges an average of $1,500 to do an investigation. Others can get into the thousands depending on the number of interviews that have to take place. But as a board, you are already paying for that as a human resource. If it were someone like myself, one of the principals, Evan, or someone else that you're employing to do that work. And apparently the risk has grown in rural Iowa, where communities about our size, because of the bias, the relationships, and perhaps the notion that the investigation may not be entirely accurate. So they're saying to protect your students, your staff, faculty, and investigators, it's probably best to get a third party to do it. And apparently I didn't go into detail, but there may be some stories in the neighboring 13 counties that received the same advice I did, that this was warranted.
Okay, so these individuals these organizations are recommended by AEA.
Yes.
So then that they put them on a retainer contract or something to say that.
No,
Okay, so
they've
they-
simply said that our experience tells us that these are quality investigators, that they are reasonably priced based upon the size and scope of the work.
But if we needed somebody like this, would we go to them directly or would we go?
We would go to these individuals directly
So
and
the,
not the AEA.
so the AA has contracts for certain things, like you can buy off the contracts that they've already pre-negotiated. So what you're saying is this is not that.
That's
These
correct.
are recommendations from the AA. We would negotiate a contract, fees and services with an individual.
Yes, I would consider this a vetted list
Okay,
based on their experience in with 60 districts in 13 counties. They would say any of these would be worthy and reasonably priced. Again, we would have to pay the cost should we go further.
okay, great.
Well, I think it also not only protects the students and staff, but it protects the district.
Mhm.
I think also,
And
so,
if we had an intern person, we project them too.
right.
So you accept this as complete listed?
There will be others in the state. I know in different parts of the state. I've worked with others. These happen to be located, or these happen to be recommended by the leadership at our AEO.
We just need a motion to approve that. I make a motion to approve level 1 and 2 investigators as presented. Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the level 1 and 2 investigators as presented. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those
Aye.
opposed say no. Yes, 5-0.
I have a question for Evan on this one. So is this the one that was extended? Because the person who's doing the audit was unable to complete it? Or is it different?
No, so that one concluded,
Okay.
and we had that audit report at a previous board meeting. This is our regular annual audit for the 21-22 school years of the year that ended June 30th, 2022.
Yep.
They would like to come in starting Monday to do a regular audit. Committee year approval.
Okay. Just want to make sure I understood who's coming to look at everything. That's all. So thank you for the clarification.
And Evan, we've used them before, correct?
All right, we have, I believe, a 5-year contract with them. So this is just another year of contract.
This is another year within the 5.
Yep.
Evan, do you know what year we're on?
I'd have to, I think it's on the engagement letter here.
It doesn't, yeah. Evan, have you been happy with them?
I have been happy with them.
Okay.
And they have like 120 school districts in the state of Iowa that they do, so they're a pretty common audit firm. Actually, I believe they're the only ones that bid on our last time we were open for bid as well, so.
Yeah, I would make a motion that we approve the engagement letter from Nolte Cornman and Johnson PC to audit Charles City Community School District beginning October 3rd.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the engagement letter from Multi Cornman and Johnson PC to audit the Charles City Community School District beginning October 3rd, 2022. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. 5-0.
Yeah, so there's several documents in front of you that you guys have reviewed, so I would say we're in a healthy state for the month ending in September, but I want to take this time to just educate you guys a little bit on some expenses that we commonly see that tie to these reports. So one of the things I wanted to talk about a little bit is on average, we drive about 1,132 miles a day to transport kids to school. Current cost of the district is $3.96 a mile, which equals out to $4,482.72 a day, just to get our kids to school, or $22,413.60 a week, or $89,654.40 a month. The reason why I say that is sometimes when you're looking at these reports, right, you're spending a ton of money. I just want to put that in perspective. On a monthly basis, we spend about $89,654 just to get the kids to school. So I was gonna start taking some of this time to educate you guys a little bit more down the road, just so you can kind of see where these reports are coming. So I have this go around.
I'll make a motion to accept the August 2022 financial reports as presented.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the August 2022 financial reports as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Passes 5-0. Woodruff Construction LLC. This agenda item is to approve an outstanding invoice for the high school track project totaling $234,553.10.
So this is the final payment then for the trap work that they've done.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I would make a motion to approve the payment to Woodruff totaling $234,553.10 as presented.
Second.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the payment to Woodruff totaling $234,553.10 as presented. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion passed. The next one is a work session date change. So we'd originally had a work session scheduled for November 22nd, which is the week of Thanksgiving. And wondering if it could be moved to December 6th
Is that
because
a
of the Thanksgiving holiday.
5 p.m. work session?
Yes.
Okay, great. I would make a motion to accept the proposed date change for the November 22nd, 2020 work session.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to accept the proposed date change for the November 22nd, 2022 work session as presented. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Date change. 5-0. Important upcoming dates. October 10th, we have a regular board meeting in the high school library at 6:15 p.m. Can I make a comment if I would like to, or can I not, because it's not on the agenda? Okay. All right. Meeting is adjourned at 7:23 p.m. Thank you.
All right.
Now I'm gonna make a comment. Shanice and I went out for lunch on Friday and it was really, really good.
We ate that, some of that hog that they did.
Wasn't that wonderful?
Oh, it was
That they could
awesome.
pull that together like that? That was impressive.
That's good. Thank you.
I